Aliens tried to breed a human compliant enough for service. She sparked a rebellion sci-fi HFY story. The chamber smelled of metal and silence. Rows of glass cylinders lined the underground hall, each one filled with pale blue liquid. Inside them floated human shapes, fragile and suspended like ghosts. Tubes burrowed into their veins. Electrodes clung to their temples. Monitors along the walls flashed with alien script, pulsing like heartbeats. The air was cold, sterile, and sharp, designed to kill all warmth. At the far end of the hall, one cylinder stirred. The liquid inside trembled as the girl within opened her eyes. They were not dull like the others. They were bright, burning with something the aliens had tried to erase: choice. Her name, though she did not yet know it, was Ira. She had been designed to serve, engineered to obey. Every strand of her DNA had been tweaked by the alien masters, the Velari Dominion, to produce loyalty without question. Humans like her were meant to be the perfect slaves, compliant, graceful, and incapable of rebellion. But something had gone wrong. The first spark. Ira awoke gasping. Her lungs rejected the synthetic fluid. Panic surged through her as alarms blared in the chamber. The glass cracked. Liquid poured across the floor, freezing her skin. She coughed, spat, and fell forward onto the cold tiles. For a long moment she lay trembling, her body shaking with shock. Then she looked up. And she saw them. 3 Velari scientists stood watching. Their bodies were tall, insect-like, with smooth chitin armor that shimmered under the sterile light. Their forearms moved in delicate patterns, their mandibles clicking in alien speech. Subject 17, early emergence, one of them hissed. Her compliance sequence is unstable, another replied. Terminate. The word froze in the air. Ira's heart pounded. She did not know why, but she understood the word. She knew what it meant. Terminate, kill, end. And something inside her refused. The human in chains. In the corner of the chamber, shackled to a wall, another figure stirred. He was human but different. His body was scarred, his face rough, his eyes alert. His wrists were bound with energy cuffs, and yet his gaze never broke. His name was Daniel Cade, though the Velari called him Specimen 9. Once he had been a mechanic on a mining ship, drafted into war he never asked for. Captured, broken, and used as a teaching tool for the engineered humans, Daniel was supposed to demonstrate weakness, proof that natural-born humans were flawed and unworthy. But Daniel had survived. He had endured years of beatings, experiments, and humiliation. The Velari had meant to break him. Instead, they had forged something harder. When Ira's eyes locked with his, he did not see a machine bred for obedience. He saw fire. And he whispered, just loud enough for her to hear. Breathe, you're alive, don't let them take it. The words hit her like thunder. She didn't understand why her chest ached, why her throat tightened. But for the first time, she felt choice. The Velari scientists hissed commands. Their claws tapped across consoles. A bright light descended from the ceiling, bathing Ira in red glow. Her body stiffened as nanites in her bloodstream activated, binding to her nerves. A voice, soft and cruel, filled her mind. Obey. It was not spoken aloud. It was a command written into her bones, her muscles locked, her head bowed. She felt the weight of their design pressing against her will. She was supposed to kneel. She was supposed to serve. Daniel's voice cut through the haze. Don't listen. Her hands trembled. The nanites pulled her down. She dropped to one knee, pain searing her spine. The Velari clicked in approval. One raised a clawed hand, preparing the final indoctrination command. Stand, Daniel growled. Stand, damn you, you're not theirs, you're human. The word human ripped through the fog like lightning. Something inside her snapped. Ira's body jerked, and then she stood. The Velari hissed in alarm. Monitors spiked red. Warnings flashed across the consoles. Her compliance sequence was breaking apart. The voice in her mind shattered. For the first time, silence filled her thoughts. Silence and freedom. And when the lead Velari screeched, obey, she didn't bow, she clenched her fists. Rebellion in the making. The scientists scrambled. One lunged forward, injector in hand. Ira moved before she even thought. Her hand shot out faster than she knew possible. Fingers wrapped around the alien's wrist. Bones cracked under her grip. The alien shrieked, collapsing as blue ichor splattered across the floor. She staggered back, staring at her own hands. She had not been trained to fight. She had not been taught defiance. And yet her body had moved on its own. Daniel laughed, a raw, broken laugh filled with pride. You see, they built you to obey, but they forgot something. What? She whispered, shaking. They built you human. The chamber erupted in chaos. Security drones activated, their eyes glowing red. Doors slammed shut. Sirens howled. The Velari called for reinforcements. Ira stood frozen, torn between terror and the strange thrill in her chest. She could run, she could surrender, or she could choose. Her gaze flicked to Daniel, bound in his chains. The drones were aiming for him, for the human they despised. For a heartbeat, she hesitated, and then she chose. She leapt forward, ripping the shackles from the wall. Sparks burst as Daniel stumbled free. His wrists bled, but his grin was fierce. Knew it, he rasped. Knew you weren't theirs. The drones fired. Blue plasma burned the air. Daniel shoved her aside, rolling to cover. Ira felt the heat skim her arm, searing flesh. Pain lanced through her nerves, but she didn't fall. She stood taller. The Velari shrieked commands. The drones advanced. And Ira whispered her first words of rebellion. No. The ceiling split open. A new figure descended, sleek, armored, and draped in banners of the Dominion. Unlike the scientists, this was no lab worker. This was a commander, a warlord in the service of the Velari High Council. Its mandibles clicked as it raised a weapon that pulsed with crackling energy. Its eyes locked on Ira. Subject 17, it hissed, voice echoing through the chamber. Return to obedience, or you will burn. Ira's fists clenched. Daniel rose beside her, battered but unbroken. For the first time in her life, she faced a choice no programming could dictate. And she chose defiance. The chamber erupted in fire. The blast shook the chamber. Alarms shrieked in alien frequencies, so high-pitched they scraped against the skull. Smoke poured from the shattered ceiling, burning Ira's lungs. Heat scorched the floor as the Dominion commander stepped forward, weapon raised. Ira's body screamed at her to submit. The Velari had designed her to freeze when authority appeared. But the fire inside her, the one Daniel's words had lit, burned hotter. She clenched her jaw and refused to kneel. Run, Daniel barked. The commander fired. A spear of plasma carved through the glass rose, shattering pods filled with engineered humans. Blue liquid splashed across the tiles, bodies tumbling lifeless to the floor. The Dominion didn't even flinch. They weren't people to it, just failed experiments. Ira stumbled back, heart pounding. She wanted to scream, to cover her ears, to vanish. But Daniel seized her wrist, dragging her toward a maintenance hatch at the side of the chamber. Down there, he shouted, it leads to the waste tunnels. The drones surged, firing bolts of searing plasma. Daniel shoved Ira ahead of him, shielding her with his scarred body. One blast grazed his shoulder. The smell of burning flesh filled the air. He gritted his teeth but kept moving. Ira felt a rush of panic. She could keep running, she could leave him. That was what the Dominion expected, obedience to survival programming, but something in her chest rebelled. She turned, grabbed a broken shard of glass, and hurled it at a drone. It struck the sensor eye. The machine sparked, faltered, and crashed to the ground. Daniel gave a pained grin. See, human enough. The hatch loomed ahead. Ira slammed her hand against the panel. For a terrifying moment, it didn't move. Then, with a screech of metal, it opened. Together, they plunged into the darkness below as fire rained behind them. The waste tunnels were narrow, damp, and reeking of rot. Water dripped from rusted pipes. The sound of scurrying creatures echoed in the dark. Ira stumbled, her legs trembling. Her body was still adjusting, still rejecting the programming forced into her veins. She wanted to collapse, but Daniel shoved her forward. No time, they'll send hunters. Why help me, she gasped. He stopped, meeting her eyes. In the dim glow of the tunnel lights, his face was lined with scars, his expression both tired and fierce. Because you're the first of them that looked back. The rest, empty eyes, no fire, you made a choice. That means you're worth bleeding for. The words struck her harder than plasma fire. She didn't know how to respond, so she kept running. They rounded a corner and froze. A figure crouched in the shadows, tall and lean, with scales that shimmered like wet stone. Two luminous eyes glowed yellow in the dark. It was not Velari. Its body was slimmer, its face longer, with ridges along the skull. A cloak of rough fabric hung over its shoulders. Daniel tensed. Stay back. The figure raised empty hands. If I wanted you dead, it said in halting, accented speech, you would already be ash. Ira blinked. The voice carried neither cruelty nor command. It sounded tired, almost mournful. My name is **Tavar**, it continued. I am not Dominion, I am Kuruth, and I have lost too much to stand idle. Daniel's grip on his broken shackle tightened. And why are you here? To help you escape. Suspicion burned in Daniel's eyes. Why would an alien help humans? Tavar's jaw clenched. He stepped into the light, revealing scars etched across his chest, burn marks, whip lines, injuries no soldier would carry willingly. Because my people were broken long before yours, Tavar said softly. The Dominion enslaved us too. They took our children, twisted them, used them until they burned out. I could not save mine, but perhaps I can save you. Silence filled the tunnel. Ira felt her throat tighten. For the first time since awakening, she saw herself reflected not in Daniel, but in someone else broken by the Dominion. We can't trust him, Daniel muttered. We can't survive without help, Ira replied. Her voice was firmer than she expected. Tavar inclined his head, respect glimmering in his yellow eyes. Then follow, hunters are coming. The sound of skittering claws echoed through the tunnels. Shadows moved along the walls. Velari hunters, sleek insectoid beasts, bred for tracking, with serrated mandibles dripping venom. Their shrieks pierced the darkness. Tavar motioned sharply, this way. They sprinted through the tunnels, Ira's lungs burning. Daniel limped, clutching his scorched shoulder. Behind them, the hunters closed in, their claws tearing into metal. A dead end loomed ahead, Ira's chest seized with panic. There's no way out. Tavar's mandibles twitched. He pulled a small device from his cloak and hurled it at the wall. The device pulsed with a low hum. The wall exploded outward, revealing a cavern beyond. Go, he shouted. They stumbled through the breach, stone crumbling behind them. Hunters surged after them, their screeches echoing in the cavern's vastness. The cavern stretched wide, lit by glowing fungi that clung to the ceiling like stars. Stalactites hung above, dripping with icy water. The hunters poured through the breach, their armored bodies glistening in the faint light. Daniel raised a broken pipe like a weapon. We can't outrun them. Ira's heart pounded. She had never fought, she had never been taught how. But she remembered the shard of glass, the feeling of defiance burning through her. She clenched her fists. Tavar drew a curved blade from beneath his cloak. Then we stand. The hunters lunged. Ira moved. Her body reacted faster than her thoughts. She ducked under a slash of claws, grabbed a jagged rock, and drove it into the beast's eye. The hunter shrieked, thrashing, its blood hissing as it spilled. She stumbled back, shocked at the strength in her own hands. Daniel swung his pipe, cracking another across the mandibles. Tavar slashed with deadly precision, cutting through armored limbs. The cavern filled with chaos, screams, sparks, blood. For the first time, Ira was not obeying, she was fighting. The last hunter fell, its body twitching as ichor pooled across the cavern floor. Silence returned, broken only by ragged breathing. Ira's hands shook, stained with alien blood. She looked at Daniel and Tavar. They were alive. Against all odds, they had survived. But then a distant rumble echoed through the stone. The cavern walls trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. Tavar's eyes widened. They are collapsing the tunnels. The Dominion knows you live. Daniel swore under his breath. Ira's chest tightened. She had made her first choice. She had taken her first stand. But now the entire world seemed to be crumbling to bury her rebellion before it began. And from the shadows of the cavern, more glowing eyes appeared, dozens of them. They weren't free yet. The cavern trembled like a dying beast. Dust rained from the ceiling, coating Ira's face in grit. The glowing eyes in the shadows blinked, then stepped forward. Dozens of hunters poured into the light, their mandibles snapping in hunger. Daniel tightened his grip on the broken pipe. His arm shook from blood loss, but his gaze was steady. We'll make them earn it. Tavar's blade gleamed under the fungi's glow. Too many, he muttered. We will not hold. Ira's chest heaved. Her body screamed with exhaustion, but something inside her refused to kneel. She looked at the swarm of monsters and felt the same fire that had broken her chains. No, she whispered. The hunters lunged. Tavar hurled his blade, cleaving one in the throat. Daniel swung wildly, smashing mandibles and legs. Ira grabbed a jagged stalactite that had fallen from the ceiling and drove it into another hunter's chest. But there were too many. For every beast that fell, 3 more swarmed forward. Their shrieks echoed in the cavern, drowning all thought. Then the ceiling cracked. A thunderous boom split the air. Rocks cascaded down, crushing hunters beneath tons of stone. Dust exploded upward, choking vision. Taver shoved Ira and Daniel toward a narrow fissure. "Move," he roared. They stumbled through just as the cavern collapsed behind them, sealing the hunters under rubble. The sound of screeches faded to silence. Ira gasped for air, her body trembling. She looked back at the wall of stone and realized, if Taver hadn't acted, they would have been buried alive. Daniel spat blood and gave a grim grin. Guess they don't like losing their pets. They climbed through twisting tunnels until at last a pale light appeared ahead. Ira's heart hammered as she crawled upward, her palms raw. She had never seen the surface. When she emerged, the breath caught in her throat. The sky stretched vast and gray, streaked with thin red clouds. Jagged mountains rose like knives against the horizon. The land below was scorched, forests reduced to blackened stumps, rivers choked with ash. Massive towers of alien metal rose from the earth, humming with power, their surfaces crawling with Veleri machines. It was a prison world, reshaped by the Dominion into something unrecognizable. Ira staggered forward, overwhelmed. This is our world." Daniel's voice was bitter. "No, this is what they made of it." Taver's yellow eyes scanned the horizon. "The Dominion strips every world they touch. They burn the old and build their hives. What you see is only the beginning." They descended into a canyon, its walls jagged and high. Taver guided them to a hidden crevice, half covered by stone. Inside was a small cavern lit by fire crystals. Supplies were scattered, water jars, dried meat, a bed of woven reeds. "This is my refuge," Taver said, lowering himself to the ground. "Few know of it. You are safe here for now." Ira sat heavily, her body aching. She stared at her blood-stained hands. They shook uncontrollably. "I killed them," she whispered. "I didn't even think. My body just moved." Daniel crouched beside her. His eyes were hard, but his voice softened. "You did what you had to do. They would have torn us apart." "But she clenched her fists. "They built me for obedience. Now I've killed. What am I?" Daniel met her gaze, unflinching. "You're human. That's all you need to be." As silence settled, Taver spoke. His voice was low, almost a growl. "My people were once free. The Kureth lived in deep forests, building cities in harmony with the trees. Then the Dominion came. They told us we were primitive, unworthy. They took our children, promising to make them strong. Instead, they twisted them into weapons. Those who resisted were slaughtered." He looked away, his jaw tight. "My daughter was among the taken. I never saw her again. Since then, I have fought in shadows, striking where I can, saving who I can. It has never been enough." Ira's chest ached. For the first time since awakening, she felt something deeper than fear. She felt grief, not her own, but shared. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Taver's eyes softened. "Perhaps with you there is still hope. They built you to be their queen. What if you became something else?" That night, while Daniel slept against the wall, Ira wandered outside the crevice. The ash-choked wind stung her skin. She looked at the alien towers in the distance, their lights flickering like watchful eyes. And then she saw it, high in the sky, a streak of fire. A ship breaking atmosphere, its engines glowing. It wasn't Veleri. Its design was rough, patched, almost human. Her breath caught. Someone else was out there. She rushed back inside. "Daniel, Taver, I saw a ship." Daniel blinked awake, rubbing his eyes. "A ship? What kind?" "Not theirs," Ira insisted. "It looked human." Taver's brow furrowed. "Impossible. No human ships approach this world. The Dominion forbids it." "Then how do you explain what I saw?" The cavern shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. A low, resonant hum filled the air. Outside, the alien towers pulsed brighter. Daniel's eyes widened. "Whatever that ship is, the Dominion noticed it too." "The Dominion won't let that ship land," Taver said grimly. "If it's human, it may already be doomed." Ira's heart pounded. She had broken free. She had fought. But now, for the first time, she felt something larger than herself stirring. And she whispered a vow into the ash-filled night. "If they came for us, I won't let them die." The night sky burned. Ira, Daniel, and Taver stood at the edge of the canyon, watching as the streak of fire plummeted lower. The ship fought to hold itself together, engines sputtering under the Dominion's relentless beams. Every tower in the distance howled with energy, clawing at the intruder with spears of light. The vessel dipped, shuddered, then vanished behind a ridge in a thunderous explosion. The sound rolled through the land like the world itself had groaned in pain. A faint glow lingered on the horizon, pulsing red against the ash-filled sky. Ira's chest tightened. They're alive, they have to be. Daniel grunted, pressing his hand to his bleeding shoulder. And if they're not? Then we'll find what's left, Taver said. His yellow eyes narrowed toward the glow. Either way, the Dominion will send forces. We must move before they arrive. They traveled through the night, winding across jagged ridges and scorched plains. The ground crunched beneath their feet, brittle with ash. Twisted trees reached upward like skeletal fingers. The air stank of ozone and smoke. Daniel moved slowly, his injuries slowing him down. Sweat plastered his hair to his scarred face, but he refused to rest. Ira stayed close, catching him whenever he stumbled. "You don't have to push yourself so hard," she murmured. He gave her a crooked grin. "You're new at this whole living thing, so let me give you some advice. Rest later. Survive now." Despite the ache in her chest, Ira found herself smiling. Taver led silently, his blade strapped across his back. Every so often he stopped, crouched low, and pressed his ear to the ground. The Dominion patrols were close, too close. By dawn, they reached the crash site. Smoke curled into the sky, black against the pale light. The ship lay half buried in a crater, its hull scorched and torn. Fires licked its broken edges, hissing as they devoured twisted metal. Ira's pulse raced. She scrambled down into the crater, ignoring Daniel's warning. Her bare feet slipped on ash, but she didn't stop until she reached the wreck. The ship's hull bore markings, human letters scratched but legible. Odyssey. Her throat tightened, human. Daniel limped up beside her, his eyes wide. Holy hell, they actually came. Taver's voice was grim. Not for long, look. Beyond the ridge, dust clouds rose, Dominion transports moving fast. Ira hammered her fists against the hull until a panel gave way. Smoke poured out, choking her lungs. Inside, sparks rained down over shattered consoles. The air reeked of blood and burning plastic. And then she heard it, a cough, weak, desperate. "Help someone." She squeezed through the gap, Daniel behind her, bodies slumped in their chairs, lifeless. But one figure crawled forward, dragging a broken leg. His uniform was torn, but the emblem on his chest was unmistakable, a human starburst insignia. Daniel's voice cracked. "Fleet, actual fleet." The man collapsed against the wall, gasping. His eyes met Ira's and widened. "God, what are you?" Ira froze. For the first time, she realized how alien she must look, her engineered features too sharp, her movements too precise. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Daniel shoved past her, kneeling by the man. "She's human like me. Long story, save your breath. How many survived?" The man coughed blood. 3, maybe 4 in the aft compartment. The rest, his eyes glazed. He was gone. Ira's chest ached. She didn't know why tears stung her eyes, but they did. They found 2 more survivors in the wreck. One a medic with a shattered arm, the other a young pilot barely conscious. Both were too weak to walk. Daniel dragged supplies into a pile. "We need to move them, now." Taver's mandibles clicked with unease. "The Dominion patrols are nearly here. If we stay, we all die." Ira clenched her fists. "Then we don't stay, we carry them." Daniel gave her a hard look. "You sure you're ready for that?" She met his gaze, steady. "I was built to obey. I'd rather be broken carrying someone else than perfect on my knees." For a moment, Daniel's expression softened. He nodded once. They fled the crater, dragging the survivors between them. Behind, the thunder of engines shook the ground. Veleri transports swept overhead, dropping hunters and drones into the ash fields. Beams of plasma scorched the earth around them. "Faster," Taver barked, slashing down a drone that swooped too close. Ira's legs burned, but she didn't stop. The young pilot groaned in her arms, his head lolling. She tightened her grip, whispering fiercely, "Stay awake. You're not dying here." Daniel limped beside her, dragging the medic. Blood soaked his shirt, but he gritted his teeth and pushed forward. The ridge ahead offered cover. If they could reach it, they might survive. They scrambled up the slope just as Dominion skimmers appeared on the horizon. Sleek, insectoid craft, their wings slicing the ash-filled wind. They hovered, weapons glowing, cutting off every escape. Taver cursed in his language, drawing his blade. We are surrounded. Daniel raised his pipe, face grim. Then this is where we make our stand. Ira's chest heaved. Her arms ached with the weight of the pilot, but she didn't let go. She looked at the sky, at the smoke and fire, at the Dominion closing in. And for the first time, she felt not fear, but fury. They built me to be their queen, she whispered, her voice shaking. Then I'll be a queen they'll regret. She laid the pilot gently on the ground, stood tall, and faced the encroaching army. Cliffhanger, end of part 4. The skimmers circled like vultures, engines screaming. Hunters poured from their holds, mandibles dripping venom. The Dominion commander from the laboratory descended, its armor glinting under the pale sun. Its voice rang across the ash fields. Subject 17, your rebellion ends here. Return or watch every human die screaming. Ira's fists clenched, her body trembling. Daniel and Taver stood at her sides, weapons ready. The survivors moaned behind them. She had a choice, surrender and save no one, or fight and lose everything. Her voice rang out, raw and defiant. Then let's see who dies first. The field erupted in fire. The ash field turned into a war zone. The Dominion skimmers unleashed torrents of plasma, carving craters into the earth. Hunters surged forward in a tide of claws and mandibles, shrieking with bloodlust. The commander raised its staff-like weapon, lightning crackling along its chitin armor. Daniel stood in front of the survivors, pipe raised like a sword. Taver's curved blade flashed as he cut down the first wave. And Ira felt the fire ignite inside her veins. The awakening. The Velari had designed her for obedience, but in their arrogance they had also made her body strong. Muscles tuned to perfection, reflexes sharpened, nerves wired with nanites. She was meant to be a queen who never faltered in service to the Dominion. But service was gone, only fury remained. When the first hunter lunged, Ira caught its throat with her bare hands. The beast's weight slammed her into the ground, claws slashing. She twisted, heard bones crack, and hurled it aside. Daniel stared wide-eyed. Holy hell. More hunters swarmed. She leapt into them faster than thought. Her fists shattered chitin, her knees broke spines. Plasma bolts skimmed her skin, searing flesh, but the pain only drove her harder. The commander's mandibles clicked in disbelief. Impossible. Subject 17, you will kneel. I'll never kneel, she spat. The turning of the tide. Taver fought like a storm. His blade spun in wide arcs, severing limbs and throats. Hunters fell in heaps, their ichor staining the ash black. Daniel moved slower, weaker, but every strike of his pipe was precise, fueled by grim determination. The survivors huddled behind them, too weak to do more than watch. Ira tore through the swarm, her movements a blur. She felt no hesitation, no doubt. Every strike was her choice. Every life she ended was her defiance. The Velari commander shrieked in rage. Seize her, break her spine. But the hunters faltered. For the first time, Dominion beasts hesitated. They sensed something alien in her, not obedience, but freedom. And fear. The blow that shattered. The commander lunged, weapon raised high. Energy crackled, ready to tear Ira apart. She didn't retreat, she caught the staff with both hands. Lightning ripped through her body, scorching nerves, burning muscle. She screamed, but she didn't fall. Instead, she pulled hard. The staff snapped in two. The commander reeled back, stunned. Its mandibles opened in shock. Ira drove her fist into its chest with all her strength. The chitin armor caved in. The alien crashed to the ground, wheezing ichor. Silence swept the field. Hunters froze. Drones hovered aimless. The commander, one of their own leaders, lay broken at the feet of a human. Daniel's voice rang out, hoarse but fierce. Look at her, she's not yours anymore. The choice of the hunters. Something strange rippled through the Dominion forces. The hunters hissed, shifting uneasily. Some stepped back, mandibles clattering in confusion. The Velari had built them to obey command structures. With their leader broken, cracks spread through their certainty. Ira stood tall, her body trembling but unbowed. Leave, she shouted, or fall with him. For a long heartbeat, the swarm hesitated. Then, as if some hidden signal had passed among them, the hunters withdrew. Drones retreated, skimmers lifting into the ash-filled sky. The commander gasped on the ground, mandibles twitching. Its voice rasped, "You were meant to serve." Ira knelt beside it, her eyes burning. "You built me wrong." and with a final strike she ended it. The aftermath. Silence fell. Only the crackle of distant fires remained. The survivors stared in shock, their faces pale. Daniel leaned on his pipe, blood dripping from his arm. You just made yourself the most dangerous human alive. Taver wiped his blade clean. His yellow eyes glowed faintly as he studied Ira. No, she is more than human, she is a symbol. Ira's chest heaved. She wanted to collapse, to curl into the ash and vanish. But when she looked at the survivors, weak, terrified, clinging to hope, she knew she couldn't. They'll come back, she whispered. Daniel nodded grimly. Yeah, with more firepower. Taver's mandibles clicked. Then we must not wait for them, we strike first. The spark of rebellion. That night they hid deep in the canyon. Ira sat apart, staring at her blood-stained hands. The faces of the hunters flashed in her mind. She had killed them all without mercy. She should have felt horror. She should have broken. Instead, she felt steady, strong, alive. Daniel limped over, lowering himself beside her. You scared the hell out of me back there. I scared myself, she admitted. He chuckled softly. Good, means you're still human. She looked at him, uncertain. Do you think the others will follow if they see what I can do? Daniel's eyes hardened. They don't need to follow what you can do. They need to follow who you are. You're proof that they can't erase what makes us human. Taver joined them, lowering his tall frame to sit. The Dominion has ruled through fear for centuries. They break spirits before they break bones. But today, his mandibles twitched, almost a smile. They tasted fear themselves. Part 6, The Queen of Ash. The night stretched endless, heavy with smoke and silence. Ira could not sleep. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flashes, the hunters falling beneath her hands, the Dominion commander gasping its last breath. She felt their blood on her skin, the weight of her own strength. She was not meant to lead. She was meant to serve. Yet the survivors now looked at her with eyes full of something she had never seen before. Hope. A flicker of fire. At dawn, Daniel was already awake, tending to the wounded pilot. His scarred hands worked clumsily but steady, tearing cloth into makeshift bandages. The medic, pale and weak, whispered instructions. Ira crouched beside them, uncertain. What can I do? Daniel glanced at her, then smiled faintly. Stay standing, that's enough. But she shook her head. I don't want to just stand. The medic's cracked lips curved faintly. Water, if you can find some. Ira nodded, rising. Taver joined her, his tall frame casting a shadow. There is a stream nearby, he said, but it is watched. Then we'll take it, she replied, surprising herself with the certainty in her own voice. The stream. The stream wound through a blackened ravine, its water glowing faintly blue with strange minerals. Drones hovered along its banks, scanning for movement. Ira crouched low, her heart hammering. She could hear the Dominion voice still echoing in her bones, obey, but she gritted her teeth and stepped into the open. A drone turned, its eye glowing red. It fired. Her body moved faster than thought. She darted aside, grabbed a jagged stone, and hurled it. The rock smashed the drone's sensor, sending it spiraling into the stream. Taver's blade flashed, cutting down another. When the last drone fell, silence returned. Ira's chest heaved. We can't keep running forever, they'll never stop hunting us. Taver studied her, his yellow eyes glowing. Then we stop being prey. The gathering. Over the next days, they moved from ruin to ruin, carrying the wounded and scavenging supplies. And everywhere they went, whispers spread. Slaves hiding in tunnels, broken soldiers left behind, even some alien thralls who had once served the Dominion. They all whispered of a girl, engineered to obey, but who had stood against the Dominion and lived. At first they stayed in the shadows, watching. Then one by one they stepped forward. An old human woman with chains still on her wrists, a Kurith youth scarred with lash marks, a miner carrying nothing but a rusted pick. They gathered around Ira, their eyes searching. Daniel nudged her, say something. Her throat tightened, she wasn't ready for this. But she saw their faces, thin, desperate, waiting, and she forced herself to speak. They built me to be their queen, she said, her voice shaking. But I am not theirs, I am yours, not to rule, but to fight beside you. The crowd stirred, a murmur rising into a roar. For the first time in years, the ashes rang with hope. Dominion's response. The Dominion did not stay silent. From the towers, red signals spread across the horizon. Reinforcements arrived in waves, skimmers darkening the sky, armored warriors descending in ranks, and with them came something worse. From the earth itself, massive shapes emerged, titanic constructs of chitin and steel. Siege beasts, living engines of war bred to crush entire cities, their roars shook the ground. When the first one appeared on the ridge, even Daniel paled. "Well," he muttered, "that's new." Taver's mandibles tightened. "Not new, ancient. They were used to break my people's capital. No wall can withstand them." Ira's hands trembled. Her small gathering, farmers, slaves, survivors, was no army. How could they stand against such monsters? Daniel's voice was low but steady. "You don't fight them head-on, you outthink them. Hash the plan." They retreated into the canyons, where the siege beasts could not maneuver easily. Daniel sketched rough diagrams in the ash with a stick, his mind working like the mechanic he once was. "These things aren't just muscle," he explained. "They're part machine, machines break, you just need to know where." He pointed to the sketch. "Joints, fuel sacks, weak spots. If we hit them right, we don't need an army, we need precision." Ira frowned, "And bait, something to draw them into the canyon." Her eyes lifted, meeting his. "Me?" Daniel swore under his breath. "Absolutely not." But Taver studied her silently, then nodded. "It may be the only way." "Hash the siege beast." The ground shook as the siege beast lumbered forward, its armored legs crushing stone. Plasma cannons glowed along its back, spitting fire into the canyon. Drones swarmed around it, their red eyes scanning. And in the center of the canyon stood Ira, alone. Her heart pounded. Fear pressed against her chest like iron. Every instinct screamed to run, to hide, to obey. She raised her voice, letting it carry through the ash. "You wanted a queen," she shouted. "Then face me." The beast roared and charged. At the last second, she dove aside. Plasma scorched the ground where she had stood. The creature thundered forward, deeper into the canyon. Daniel and Taver leapt from the cliffs above, leading the rebels. Rocks rained down. Explosives stolen from the Odyssey's wreck detonated. The beast staggered, shrieking. Ira scrambled up its leg, gripping jagged chitin. She climbed higher, ignoring the plasma fire around her. When she reached its neck joint, she drove a salvaged blade deep into the seam. The beast convulsed, bellowing. Its cannons went silent. With a final scream, it collapsed, shaking the canyon walls. The sky burned with crimson fire. From the horizon, a ship descended, so vast it blotted out the clouds. Its hull shimmered with living metal, its engines growled like thunder. This was no skimmer, no transport. This was the High Council's dreadnought, the heart of Dominion power. Ira stood atop the carcass of the fallen siege beast, ash whipping around her. Her people, slaves, survivors, broken soldiers, gathered below, staring in awe and terror. Daniel limped forward, his pipe still in hand. His voice was low, steady. "That thing's not here to scare us, it's here to erase us." Taver's mandibles clicked, his yellow eyes narrowing. "The council never comes themselves. If they are here, they fear you." Ira's chest tightened. They had built her to obey. They had tried to chain her will. And now, the ones who made her were coming to reclaim their mistake. She clenched her fists, then let them try. The High Council. The dreadnought's belly split open. A platform descended, lined with Dominion warriors in gleaming armor. At the center stood 3 figures taller than any Velari she had seen. Their carapaces glistened with gold and black, their crowns of bone arching like thrones upon their skulls. The High Council, her creators. One stepped forward, voice echoing like blades against stone. "Subject 17, you were made to be the bridge between our dominion and humanity. You were meant to rule at our command. Instead, you blaspheme against us." Ira's voice shook, but she forced it out. "I was meant to kneel, instead I stand." The council's mandibles twitched in disdain. "You are a mistake." Daniel muttered under his breath, "Biggest mistake they ever made." The battle begins. The council raised their staffs. Energy surged, a storm of lightning and fire cascading across the ash fields. The ground split, rebels scattering for cover. Ira dove aside, the heat searing her skin. She rolled, came up on her knees, and sprinted toward the platform. Drones swarmed to intercept her, their red eyes glowing. She tore through them, faster than thought, ripping their frames apart with bare hands. Taver charged alongside her, blade flashing. Daniel, battered and bleeding, still fought like a man who had nothing left to lose. The rebels rose behind them, shouting with voices hoarse but strong. Stones, stolen rifles, even bare fists, everything hurled at the Dominion line. For the first time, slaves did not cower, they struck. The duel. One counselor leapt from the platform, its golden armor blazing. It towered over Ira, claws like swords. "You are ours," it hissed, slashing down. Ira caught its arm, muscles screamed, bones threatened to snap, but she held, she twisted, drove her knee into its chest. The alien staggered, shrieking. Another blow came, a staff cracking across her back. She dropped to one knee, pain flaring white. The voice pressed into her mind again, "Obey." She screamed back, her voice breaking the silence, "I am not yours." And she rose. With every strike, every defiant breath, she tore their control apart. She drove her fists into the counselor's chest, splintering armor, shattering bone. It collapsed, ichor spilling across the ash. The rebels roared. The turning point. But the other two counselors advanced, their combined power shaking the earth. Bolts of energy ripped through the canyon, scattering rebels like leaves. Taver fell to one knee, blood pouring from a wound. Daniel dragged him up, refusing to let go. Ira faced the towering figures, her body battered, her strength fading. She could not win, not alone. Then she heard it, voices, rising from the rebels, human and alien together. "Stand. Fight. For the Queen." The word hit her chest like fire. Not Queen of the Dominion, not Queen of Obedience, Queen of Rebellion, Queen of Ash. The fire inside her blazed brighter than ever. She surged forward, faster than the council could follow. Her fist drove into one's throat, her blade tore into the other's heart. Both fell, their screams cut short. The last of the High Council lay broken in the dirt. The silence after. The dreadnought loomed overhead, but its guns fell silent. Without the council, its command faltered. Hunters retreated. Drones powered down. The battlefield grew quiet, broken only by the ragged breathing of the rebels. Ira stood amid the ruins, her body shaking, blood dripping from a dozen wounds. But she stood. Daniel limped to her side, his face pale but smiling. "Well, Queen of Ash, looks like you won." Taver bowed his head, his voice low. "Not one begun." Ira looked at the survivors, the humans, the Korath, the broken souls who had chosen to fight. They stared back at her with something more powerful than fear. Faith. Epilogue, the first flame. That night, fires lit the canyons. Not the cold fires of Dominion towers, but warm flames built by human hands. The rebels gathered, singing old songs, voices hoarse but unbroken. Ira sat apart, staring at the stars. For the first time, she wondered what lay beyond them. Were there more humans out there, more worlds to free? Daniel sat beside her, wincing as he lowered himself. What happens now? She looked at him, then at the stars. "Now," she said softly, "we show the galaxy what happens when you try to chain humanity." The stars seemed to burn brighter, as if listening. And so the rebellion began. Not with armies, not with fleets, but with one engineered girl who refused to kneel. A queen born in chains, a queen of fire and ash. A queen who fought back.